Good afternoon, my name is Peggy. I am here representing Potato Patch Nutrition for my partner Sarah Koning and I. And this is my sister Jenny, and she is co-founder of the Shih Tzu Collection. And we are going to introduce you and talk about some of the products that Potato Patch is now going to be offering on behalf of the canine species. So I'm going to turn it over to Jenny to talk about some of the things that she has already been experiencing with the products that we are going to be offering. Jenny?
Yeah, we've been breeding Shih Tzus for about 16 years now, and I think the first thing that we noticed in breeding the dogs was calcium problems from when they would nurse their puppies.
And what did that look like as going forward? What were the changes you saw when you began to see a calcium deficiency? What are the signs?
Basically, they can't get up. They
stand up, or
they can't stand up.
The puppy or the mom?
The mother.
The mother.
She because the calcium is pulled out of the bones and muscle and stuff, and when they get too low of calcium, they can have seizures. And they just plaster to the floor. They're just too weak to even get up. And it's terrifying. The first time we had it happen, we had no idea what was going on. We thought the dog was dying. And we called the clinic and then learned that it was a calcium problem and
deficiency.
And we began to supplement with calcium. And then we started going to the breeder seminars, and we started going to the seminars from the time that they first started those, in this little building.
And how long ago approximately has that been?
I want to say it was probably 2010, maybe, something like that.
So 14 years. So you've been breeding a couple of years when you started.
Yep. Okay. So we learned at the breeder seminar that in 2012, all the dog food industries dropped the calcium levels in dog food because they felt like most dogs lay on the couch, and so they don't need more than a maintenance amount of calcium.
So that being in kibble and wet food both across the boards, all dog foods.
Yep, because the dogs always had access to kibble, and then they would get wet food morning and night when they had puppies, but it didn't seem to matter. The calcium deficiency was there. So then we began to have to supplement with calcium on a regular basis. But then we began to see other issues as the years went by in breeding, like inconsistent litter sizes. One time they'd have 5, and the next time they'd have 2 or 3. Inconsistent cycles where 6 to 7 months is great.
Would be considered normal and
very
healthy.
Normal and healthy. And then we were having dogs go 8 months, 9 months in between cycles. And we were wondering what was going on, because way back in the beginning, our dogs were cycling great and had big litters, and then you have this calcium problem, and then you have heat cycle problems and litter size problems, and we weren't changing anything. And so as we continued to go to the breeder seminar, we learned more and more that the dog food does not provide, even at puppy food, does not provide what a nursing dog or pregnant dog needs to support good, strong, healthy litters.
So nutritionally support does not nutritionally cover all nutritional needs.
Yeah. So one of the sponsors of the Iowa's Breeder Seminar was Revival Animal Health, and their veterinarian that was the vet for Revival helped formulate these products from Breeder's Edge that it was a prenatal called Oxymate, and then it was once the mothers whelped, they went on to Oxymama to support the milking the mother and everything.
Process. I'm going to pause just a second because my background is in breeding horses. And so the thing that I know about herds or packs across the board, because it's just natural to the survival, when nutrition, and I had already been experiencing these same type of things with horses, when nutrition levels get low in the body, then it invites in the possibility for disease. And so we saw the same type of cycling issues with mares as they would get older, where they should easily be able to breed until 18, 19, 20 years old. We were starting having them backing off being able to get pregnant at 14, 15 years old. And so at the same time, we're having the same problems. And the reason for these problems is that if the body doesn't have enough nutrients, the first thing that is shut down is reproduction. And that is to protect the herd and to protect the pack. Because if the body is not able to support a healthy baby, and the pack or the herd is trying to protect an unhealthy baby, then it weakens the pack and then also puts the life of the pack or the herd in danger. And so the body will shut down reproduction as a way of protection for the pack. So the longer cycles, the cycles where you aren't getting them pregnant or not getting as many pregnant because the nutritional availability in the body is not such to support more than one or two. So I'll let you go on about the supplements that then you became familiar with.
So we started using the Oxymate and the Oxymama, and we did see a difference. We did get better cycles, and we were getting better litter sizes, but not straight across the board.
So not every puppy.
Not every mother.
Not every mother. So some did, some didn't.
And it did raise it to where we could see a difference, but it didn't fix it. So I began to try to look for some kind of nutrition to fill the gap from the time the mother's weaned until they would come back and eat, because I'm like, if they're not able to rebuild what they've lost, then I think that's why we're not getting good cycles and we're not getting good litter sizes.
Which correlates exactly to what I was just saying, where the body is going to put off reproduction if it's not healthy enough to support the pregnancy.
So I began to look for just like multivitamin supplements to feed on that in-between time. And what I found is and the more research I did, every supplement that I found said vitamin B supplement. And in my research, I found that supplement means synthetic vitamin, which is man-made, so it's not a natural vitamin.
And it's very difficult for the body to take on. So technically, yes, the vitamin B is there, but it's not bioavailable. And so actually during this time, I was also doing research because they had been changing the grains of horses. And I wanted to go to something just plain oats for our horses, and then I wanted a supplement that I could supplement for them. And I was finding also not only that same information, but that chelated minerals. I'll just take magnesium, for example. So they take magnesium oxide, which can be absorbed by the body 0.001%, which means if I have 1,000 milligrams of magnesium in a supplement, it's only going to be the body will only be able to utilize 1 milligram. That's how much the body can take on, because the bioavailability of that element is so poor. And so then they would chelate, and I thought, and everybody thought that was great. Well, when you do the research, you're only getting 10 of them out of 1,000. So it brings it up 1%. That's it. And so, or actually it's 0.01%. So it's not a great. So I started doing research to find out what actually is available. What can the body take on? So we were kind of having the same experience at the same time. So now fast forward to when the original conversation we had about nutrition and some of the dogs and things that you were experiencing, including the breeding dogs, and we'll go through some of them specifically, and then also dogs who are pets, which a lot of you will have pet dogs. You won't be raising dogs, but you have pet dogs. So you may be in a place of identifying some of the things that Jenny's going to talk about.
So I know in 2020 we talked about the heat cycles, and your product Miracle, you had been using for a while. So
since about 2008.
So we began to use that on the dogs on this in-between time, and cycles were much better. I mean, it's rare that we have a dog cycle outside the 6-7 month. I mean, they hit it. And the Miracle I designed for mares because we had a lot of mares, as I was saying, we get to 13, 14 years old and we just stop getting pregnant. They would have cycles would be too long, cycles would be too short, they wouldn't ovulate.
and then what I would call a senile egg. When it finally drops, it's not viable, and it's too old. It has just run its course already before it's released. And so I created a 12-component herbal supplement to support the production of the female hormones within the body, and that is what she's talking about, was this one specific thing that with the horses we had been using. So we did the research to make sure that all the products were in it were safe for dogs, and then I sent her some to try.
And again, we did see a tremendous difference in the heat cycles, but I was still stopping that product when the dog came in heat and put them on the Oxymate. And they would be on the Oxymate until they would whelp, and then they go on to the Oxymom. We still had litter size issues. The litter sizes were better, for sure, but we still had some dogs that would have 2 or 3 puppies, and good sized dogs. And we did also have problems that when they would whelp, they would be very agitated, unsettled. It took 3 days to a week for them to just lay out and take a breather and take care of their puppies. And that was a frustrating thing. So that was something I was kind of dealing with on the side when our little male's smoking. He got sick in 2019 and it compromised his kidneys, so he was on a renal diet since then. And in the beginning of 2024, he began to decline.
And what is a decline in a renal or kidney failure situation? What does that look like in a dog?
Not as active, began to lose weight. One day he would eat, the next day he wouldn't. He was such a bright-eyed, happy spirit that he always tried to be happy, despite how he was feeling, but we knew him well enough that we knew that things were changing. And so I got an appointment at the clinic and got him in there, and they said that his kidneys were failing.
Actively failing.
So that's when I had reached out to you and was telling you about the situation that we were in with him, and so you got
I'm going to pause this just a second, make sure this is recording. We'll be right back. I start with that, and that was in what, 2024?
He got sick in 2019 and it compromised his kidneys, so he was on a renal diet, and then in the beginning of 2024, his kidneys, there were changes in his behavior. Like one day he would eat all of his food, the next day he wouldn't. He lost weight. He's always been a nice, fleshy, plump little guy, but he was lean. And some days he just didn't act as happy as he normally was. So I took him in and had his kidneys checked, and they confirmed that his kidneys were failing. So that's when I would reach out to you and talk to you about the situation that we were in with him, and you were going to send me some herbs.
And I had a horse, a stallion, who he at 22 years old, due to some bad grain, had been diagnosed with kidney failure or going into renal failure, and they told me that I wouldn't be able to save him, and it would be a pretty fast decline, and like a matter of months. And I couldn't accept that. So I did research on what I could give that horse, and he lived another 2.5 years and died of natural causes at 24 with perfectly functioning kidneys. So I knew that it could be reversed depending on how far or how advanced it was. And because my vet told me I wouldn't be able to save that horse, and that would eventually take him, and they couldn't believe that within 30 days his kidney enzymes and all of his kidney levels through the same blood test that had diagnosed him were normal. And so I did send you herbs, but it was pretty late in his renal experience.
Yeah, by the time I got the herbs, he wasn't around much longer. So I think the next time I had talked to you, I asked you about my horse, some supplements for my horse. So we talked about that for a while, and you had some stuff you were going to send for the horses. And in that conversation, I have our main breeding male, Mojo, that totally changed the face of our breeding stock when we got him.
Your foundation's definitely.
Yes. He gave us the faces, the hair coats, the short legs, the personality, just everything that
Sturdy
we were,
little bodies.
Yes, everything we were after. And him combined with smoking gave us the stock that we just loved. Well, at this same time when we lost smoking, Mojo's breeding had dropped off drastically.
And when you mean his breeding, what specifically do you mean? His sperm count, his drive?
His drive, like, and I was thinking, because at one point he jumped off of something and tweaked his back, and his back was very sore for a while, and he had to be on some painkillers and anti-inflammatories. And so I was assuming that it was just back trouble he was having. And then when a female would come in heat and he would show interest and maybe would cover the female, the next day the female needed to be covered. It was, I just couldn't get him interested, and I had him on the painkillers during that time, you know, to help support his back, and I just couldn't. But then I began to notice that his whole entire drive was not the same as it was.
His interest level had just left.
Yeah, even after his back didn't seem to be bothering him so much, the interest still wasn't there. So when we talked about the horses, then I had asked you about, because of Nike, your stallion, that had bred for years, clear up until...
He bred until he was 24 years old, and for most male, in all species, most males should be capable of breeding up until almost the grave. I mean, they should be able to slide sideways into the grave and still be breeding at the, you know, if they're dying of natural causes and they don't have a lot of pain in their body. And our stallion at 24 years old, which he was well over 17 hands, his back was way higher than I am tall. And so for a dog, if you're familiar with dogs, that would be a Great Dane or a Saint Bernard. He's a very large animal. And in the same way for horses, as it would be true for dogs, 24 is a very old age for a horse that size. Generally, like Great Danes, they have a shorter lifespan, and even 20 is kind of the average lifespan of an average sized horse. So 24 and a half is significantly old. And he bred at 24, had a very successful breeding season at 24.
So knowing how well he had done, I was talking to you about the fact that Mojo has just lost his drive, and we did collect on him one time, and his sperm count, like, the swimmers were really sparse. And so that was extremely concerning. But he's so valuable in our program.
And you had just lost your other male smoking, and so
it was kind of a double hit on us. And I felt so much better when I talked to you, because you're like, yeah, absolutely, no problem. You know,
I got this.
Yeah, I believe if we support all the systems of his body and get those back into alignment, the reproduction will follow. So you sent me what's called Daily Doggy,
which is a full nutrition. When I went through with the horses and I wanted a supplement to give them that was bioavailable, what I developed was what we call the superfood. And superfood is in the Doggy Daily. And also in the Doggy Daily is a hormone balancer, which deals with the thyroid, the hypothalamus in the brain, which is your control center of all hormones. And your entire body runs off of hormones. It's a hormone system. And the adrenals. And then separate from that is the male-female organs, and we have separate products for that. But in the Doggy Daily is also things to protect the kidneys, wormless to worm the animal, and the hormone balance, or the superfood, and, well, stuff to support pretty hair too.
and the joint.
And the joint. There's joint and painless as well. And they're all 100% natural, plant-derived, bioavailable products. There's nothing in them that is synthetic or unnatural. So the body can extract exactly what it needs, but it's also natural. So if the body doesn't need it, doesn't need the components to take out to make the hormones or to make good gut bacteria flora, because there's also tum-tum in that, which supports a healthy gut, because all hormones begin in the gut. So if you have a bad microbiome in the gut, you're not going to have a good hormone. So if you don't support everything, then it's difficult to build real health. And so if you can bring the nutritional map up online, what we were finding with horses, because in horses, in those products, we call it Powerfully Complete, and it's actually our most popular product. And because it covers everything, it's just not a part of the body that isn't covered, except for, and because, gender specific. The males need things to build testosterone, the females need things for estrogen and progesterone, and they're the raw materials to build them. They're not synthetic hormones. They're the raw materials for the body to naturally make what it is designed to make, which is gender specific hormones. So those products are separate, but the Daily Doggy, just like for the horses, covers all the bases for the dog's entire body nutritional needs.
So you sent me the Daily Doggy, and you sent me Studley for him.
For him.
So through our conversation, then I'm thinking about all of our pets that have some issues. Like my 12-year-old emotional support dog Baby, she has glaucoma in her one eye, and it can be very painful at times for her.
Glaucoma in an eye basically means that the eye is swelling, and the eye is one of the most sensitive areas of the body. If you've not experienced glaucoma or swelling in the eye, just think about when somebody smacked you accidentally in the eye, or you poke something accidentally in the eye. It's very painful.
So, and then besides her glaucoma, she's always had kind of an icky tummy. She's always had stools that were more like, not necessarily diarrhea, but pudding, just soft. It's not it's not formed stools.
Yeah. And if you know anything about stools, for any animal really, we're pretty much all the same in this way. But for dogs specifically, their stools should be formed. What happens when a dog's stool is not formed? There's a few things that indicates. The first thing it indicates is that the tummy flora, the good bacteria, is not being supported. And what supports a good bacteria is a negative or an alkaline pH balance in the system. So if it becomes too acidic, the good bacteria is going to really suffer. It's not going to be able to thrive, but the bad bacteria is going to thrive really well. It's just going to have a heyday in there, and it's going to reproduce very, very quickly. And what that looks like for the body is, in order to try to rectify the situation, it's going to push everything through very quickly to try to push that bad bacteria out so that it doesn't do damage in the system. And so as the food is pushed more quickly through the system, the body does not have the opportunity to extract from it the nutrition that it would if it was going at a normal pace. So not only is the body suffering because the good bacteria is not there to help protect the hormones and build hormone and do the things that it's designed to do that is beneficial for you, the bad bacteria is also getting into the body, leaking out of the gut, which is why it's trying to speed up to get rid of it. And it causes leaky gut, and it starts causing inflammation all over the body, and you're going to start seeing that when the feces is going too fast and is not forming. But also, it's then also suffering from nutrient deficiency because it's going too fast for it to extract the nutrition it would otherwise be able to. So continue.
So, and that makes sense because with her seeming to feel icky, she just kind of got to the point where it almost like she just existed.
Depression. In humans, we would call it depression, and depression begins in your gut.
And then she had developed anxiety to the point where she would pant and shake, and it would make the glaucoma in her eye worse. Like it would just put so much pressure on it, it just looked like it could pop. And so I was very excited to get her started on this stuff. And then my father's dog, our father passed away in 2020, and I kind of took his dog under my wing, so to speak, and he was just diagnosed with a fused vertebrae in the base of his spine. And at times it would get so painful that I would have to carry him to my room at night. I'd have to carry him back out to
Which is just a hallway.
Yeah.
It's just up and down a hallway. It's not stairs. It's not across, a football field or something, it's literally just down the hallway.
And I would have to carry him outside when I would take the dogs outside every day. Pretty much anywhere I would go throughout the day, I'd have to carry him to that room and put him in a bed. And, so I had him x-rayed.
And how long would that last at a time, generally speaking?
The worst one was over a week.
Over a week.
And he was on meloxicam, anti-inflammatory painkiller, during that whole time, trying to get it to
lower the
down.
inflammation.
Yeah. So after that long episode, I took him in and had him x-rayed, and that's where we discovered the fused disc in his back. And so then he was prescribed a regimen of painkillers, and he's on gabapentin, he was on meloxicam and tramadol.
So 3 different painkillers.
And he was better on all those things. It at least gave him the ability to move around and have some kind of normalcy. So when I got your products, I started those 3 dogs on this stuff specifically right off the bat. And
I did send extra individual products because while there's small amounts of everything in the main one, if you have a dog with specific needs, such as a tummy need, or arthritis or something like that, then we have specific products like Tum Tum for the tummy and Painless for arthritis or just injury, inflammation of any kind. And so I did send extra products of each one of those.
So for Mojo, he was on the Daily Doggy, the Studley, and extra Painless to keep his back comfortable. And for Baby, she was on the Daily Doggy, the Tum Tum, the extra Tum Tum, and the extra Painless for her eye and stuff. And then Mickey Mouse was on the Daily Doggy and extra Painless. So I'll start with Baby. Within the first week, her whole demeanor changed. She was happy and funny and began to do things that I even forgot that she had done, because it was so long that she hadn't done those things anymore.
So like months, years. And how old is Baby?
She's 12.
She's 12.
So funny things like taking a ball and pushing it under the washing machine, and then she scratches on the washing machine and backs up and looks at me and wags her tail, and she goes to scratch because she wants me to get down there and see what she has put under the washer. Just funny things like that, and things that she just
wants you to bend over and get on your hands and knees.
I think she wants to show me that she is in charge. She can get me to get down there and get it, and I do. But it's so exciting to see her do those things. And if she thinks we're going outside, she gets all giddy and happy and bounces her front end.
And this is different than it had been for a few years.
Yeah. Like if I was going outside, I'd be like, baby, let's go. Baby, let's go outside. And she'd just look at me and she'd finally get up and come. Well, she was beating me to the door now. Just all kinds of happy and excited.
How long did you say between when you
Within
started?
the first week.
Within the first week.
And her stools were still a little soft within that first week, but I think by end of the second week, like
with the Tum Tum.
I know it's weird, but I thought I'm gonna take a picture of this and show it to Peggy, because like she has a real stool, like a normal stool,
It's not pudding.
Yeah, and because it would always get in her tail, because her tail's long and bushy, and it was so frustrating. I was washing her tail out all the time, and I didn't have to finally, and so it was so exciting. And her eye, she was on eye drops for the cataracts, and they were really beginning to look like they were dissolving the cataracts. And then she went through a serious anxiety episode, and it just all went back to how it was. And I was so depressed. Yeah. Because we were like making noticeable changes with her eyes, and I even had her recheck done, and then the vet said, yeah, the cataracts are dissolving.
And I use the same eye product. What is it called?
Lumen Pro.
It's actually very, very good. And I'll try to put in the comments so that you can look that up if you'd like. Or if I forget, just put in the comments, and I will make sure that you get a link to that.
But with the other thing that I noticed with being on those products is the pressure in the eye with the glycoma had gone down, and it looked more normal, and she wasn't bothered by it. Because there were times where she was so bothered by it that she would just lay in the bed all day long.
It's probably all she could think about was how much it hurt. Yeah.
So then moving on to Mickey Mouse, he was started on the daily doggy and an extra dose of painless.
And he was the one that had the lower back fusion.
Yeah, and within the first week, he was we're getting thumbs ups.
Sorry, I don't know if that came on the screen, but there is something happening there.
But within the first week, he was very happy and giddy and jumping back up on we've got a little doggy shelf that they lay on. He was jumping back up there on his own. When we go outside, he was running around and playing, and he would even stand up on his hind legs and bounce his front end. And so
And this is within
the first week.
Same as the
And
other.
so after he was on it a couple weeks, I was beginning to wonder if I could back his pain meds off. So I had reached out to you and asked if that would be something that would be a possibility. And you talked about, just doing one at a time, just very gradually, so that you could see any change.
I think specifically what I said was, you're emotionally connected to that dog. The information, you're his advocate. And this is something that everyone that has an animal should know. If your intuition, if the spirit within you is pushing on you and telling you something about your animal, follow your intuition. If your intuition says, I think maybe he doesn't need as much med now, he's feeling better and he's on the supplement, maybe I could back off. Follow your intuition. Take baby steps and do that, because he has no way to tell you whether he needs something or not other than what you see, because you are his advocate.
So I began to back them off one by one. Got him off the first one. He still seemed great. Backed him off the second one till he was off of it. Still seemed great. Backed him off the last one. And he remained great. And which made me feel really good, because it concerns me to have them on pain meds, because this was going to be a long-term thing.
Yeah.
I do keep his pain meds prescriptions filled, just in case he would need a little extra help. And there was one time since he's been on this stuff that he jumped off of something and kind of pinched his back a little bit, and I could tell it was really sore, so I only used the meloxicam just to give him a little added help. And he was on it. It's a 24-hour dosage. He was on it for 2 days, and he was good to go after that. And I didn't have to use it again. He hasn't used any of his meds since.
Yeah. And while what we offer is all 100% natural, we don't have any issue with medicine. I think we should use everything at our disposal for the benefit of the animal, and be able to follow our intuition as much as we can and get advice when we aren't sure of it. And but they work together. And for me, medicine is a punch in the gut to whatever issue the dog or yourself are facing. And so it's helpful. But to use a medicine long term, the concerns that I would have with that, given my own experiences, is that a medicine is going to set up an acidic environment in the tummy, which eventually is going to cause a lot of the problems that we have talked about previously, with the stool softening, and then the nutritional deficiencies because it's moving too fast. Things like that. Ulcers are also become a concern. Liver and kidney failure become a concern. And so to protect those areas while you need to give them medicine, and then the ability to restore health and then pull them off the medicine, those are our goals. So we're not against medicine. We don't want you to think that we are, but we do need to have an awareness and have an amount of responsibility towards the long-term health when we're talking about medicine.
So then moving on to Mojo, he was put on the daily doggy, the painless, and your Studley product. Within the first week, he had the zoomies. I mean, he
Not
was
depressed.
He was
So all
up
three,
and-
no depression after
Nope.
week one.
Nope, he was up and running and happy, and when we go out in the backyard to, take him outside and let him run and play, he was just running laps around me. I mean, I just sat there and laughed at him. It was so cute.
And how old is he?
He when the beginning of his 8th year is where he began to decline. And so we really hardly didn't get any litters out of him through that whole 8th year. And we started him on your products the end of this year.
2024.
Uh-huh.
We're in 2025 now, but
yes, and we got our first litter back out of him right before Christmas, so his first litter was posted around Christmas time. He just turned 9 the end of December, and it took about a month to get his mojo back, so to speak.
Which is kind of what I would say would be normal, because reproduction is the last thing to come online. The stomach and the feel-good hormones that are like serotonin that wake you up, and they're the precursor to a lot of the hormones that make you feel good, like progesterone and oxytocin, the lovable ones, do have root beginning with the gut microbiome.
So we have had several litters from him since, and we have several more litters coming, and he just seems to be going strong. He acts like he did when he was a young male.
Even if you breed him 2 days in a row, you've not had, like, because I know you mentioned that he had bred once and then the next day he was disinterested.
We have not had a female that he did not cover all the way through since he came back up online.
Yeah, okay.
So
Following a month of the products, that's been the experience.
Yep. And he stays on the products. You know, we're staying right where we're at to support everything, and yeah, there's no indication of any backslide whatsoever. He's seems good to go.
So let's talk about a couple of the other ones. I know that there's one called Sunday that's a younger dog that you've had similar experiences with other dogs similar to him, and then maybe you could give us some comparison with what your experience with him as opposed to other dogs you've had, and then being on the products, what you're seeing.
Yeah, so since 2020 we have gone through multiple males, and I say we've gone through them because we are very picky of the males that we are going to use. So some of them, after the first few litters, we were seeing things that we didn't like, whether it was personality or body structure or something. So we have started multiple young males within the last 5 years. And a common thing that we have seen is that a male, once they start breeding, will start gung-ho, and then at some point they slough off and they become very unreliable.
Within 6 months, a year?
Within a few months.
Within a few months.
We had one particular male that started out pretty good for first 4 or 5 breedings, and then became very unreliable until he was 3 years old.
That's a long time. And when did you start? Around a year?
Yep, around a year.
Around a year.
We don't
so
really,
a couple of years he was pretty unreliable.
Yeah, to the point where if you got a female covered the first time, there was no guarantee you were going to get the female finished with him. And multiple times we had to get another male to get the female finished covering because we want her to have puppies, but then you're looking at DNA
in every
litter out of
for proof of fatherhood.
So it got to be extremely frustrating, and he was actually one male that was working out, so we tried to work through the frustration, and this is prior to Mojo going down, so we hadn't
had a discussion about it.
So about the time he turned 3, he became more reliable, and he has done pretty well since. But we have come up against this quite a few times with all the young males that we have gone through, and it's just kind of an odd thing. Like they start
It shouldn't be normal. This shouldn't be a normal thing.
Years ago with the males we had, I didn't know this was a thing.
Yeah.
So right around the time that Mojo backslid, we had a young male that was just starting named Sunday. He was about 4.5 pounds, really pretty little broken colored male, and started out gung-ho. I mean, he was just a
all
breathing
about
little
it.
fool, yeah. But then he hit a point where he just lost interest. He might come and check out the girl, but then he'd just turn and walk away, and we're like, man, she's ready, where are you going, you know? And so we'd have to go get a different boy, and we never actually got him to cover a female when he went through the spurt. We just had to go
How
get
long did this phase?
Oh, I want to say 2 months.
2 months.
we had litters from him prior to that, but thankfully this happened around the same time that Mojo was coming back
up.
from being on your products. So I thought, what the heck? I don't know why he's doing this, and being a young male, he shouldn't be doing this, but I'm going to put him on the products too. And it took about 30 days for him to come back up, but I tell you, he's related to a lot of females, so we have to wait until we have a female.
He has specific girlfriends.
That he can cover, but the last female we brought inside and we're covering with a different boy, Sunday was going to tear the door down. All 4.5 pounds. And he was making jungle creature noises and trying to bite the door, and
he's ready.
He's ready, yeah. And there's been a few females, retired females, that have come into heat, and he lives in the house, so he's got a little belly band on, but he is just after those girls. Yeah. So I'm very confident that when a female comes in that he can cover, he will be ready, and we'll have more Sunday litters. So
yeah,
it's been a very exciting thing, and it's exciting to know that if they do drop off, there are things that you can do naturally to bring them back up.
To help them. And then let's go over a few of the pet dogs that you've helped to, like Grumpy Pants, Boogie.
Yes.
I called him Grumpy Pants for years.
Yeah, or his nickname was Scrooge. Yeah, that's our younger sister Mindy's dog, and he's about 12 also. I think he's just a few months younger than Baby. But he's been grumpy for years.
Oh yeah.
Years.
Yeah, to the point that his name for me was Grumpy Pants. When she would come and bring her dogs and stay at my house in Kansas City, he would stay when she would go and race. She's a runner. And I called him Mr. Grumpy Pants because he was always so cranky at me.
Yeah, he would growl at you if you pick him up.
Or get too close to me and thought you would pick him up.
Really didn't want attention, which is sad because we raised him.
Yeah,
which
is uncommon for a Shih Tzu anyway. They're temple dogs. They're actually the #1 dog for older companionship dogs, and they're great travel buddies. They're the happiest dog I've ever met.
And there was a time where he was a very, very happy dog. So he was starting to portray some arthritis in a front shoulder. He was limping, and he would want Mindy to pick him up and take him up and down the stairs and things like that. So she was at a race that our younger brother was helping her with, so I filled up a couple containers of the Daily Doggy and the Painless and sent them with our brother Chris to give to Mindy. So she started Boogie on those products that weekend, and then by the next weekend we have a doggy date day that we do usually every Sunday, where we just spend the day relax with the dogs, whether we go out to the campsite or watch movies with them. We just hang with our dogs all day. And so when she came out that following Sunday for doggy date day, Boogie just comes trotting through the hallway doors right up to me, wagging his little tail, all happy. I'm like, what's gotten into Boogie? And he's like, I don't know, he's been like this for almost a week now. And I'm like, really? And I said, that's how Baby was just right after I started her on those products. And she says, like, he wants to get on my lap, he wants to cuddle. She's like, I don't know who he is anymore, because that's not the Boogie that I have come to know now, you know. And so the last couple times that she has come, that's how he's been.
Puppy Boogie.
Yes,
is back.
Yes, happy and just wants attention and wants on your lap. And the other thing that I noticed, and not sure why it came through his coat this fast, but his hair just has a gloss to it, and you can.
It does
feel
have coat components in it.
A gloss in the coat, but it came through his coat pretty fast. So.
And what about the limping? You said he was starting to have shoulder arthritis.
Mindy said that at home he doesn't limp at all. At all. She said he does really good. There is a little hesitation about climbing the stairs, but I don't know if it's a memory of the hesitation or if he does have a little bit of soreness in that.
But it has improved.
She said the only time that she really sees that limping come back is when she comes out to our house, but I think it's because he's so excited and so active and running around and
overdoing it.
Yeah. So, but it'll be interesting to see how he is after he's been on the product
for a little longer.
Yeah. But it has made a great improvement in his attitude for sure. No longer grumpy pants.
Yeah,
So-
no longer grumpy pants. We're gonna pause and just make sure that this is recorded, and we'll be right back. Okay, we're back, and there's a few other dogs that we had discussed earlier: Willow, Snuggles,
Ferret
Ferret,
and
Kitty
Abeeda.
Girl, Abeeda.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Okay, so we have a little female that we raised and was bred, and we bring them into our puppy nursery when they're 2 weeks out, get them kind of settled in there and get their hair, if their hair is longer, their hair stripped off and preparing for birthing.
Meaning clipped,
Yeah.
not pulled out or
Yeah.
anything.
Stripped off, clipped off.
Clipped naked.
Yep. So when we brought this little girl, because she was in a pen with a large group of dogs before, they're all separated in stages, but she was in a pen with other pregnant females. So when they come into the nursery, then they're put into a pen by themselves, their little house, we call it. But we noticed that she was drinking a tremendous amount of water. She's about 6.5 pounds and was using the size of water dish that 19 house dogs use.
Mhm. Like this is 4.5 pounds, so only 1.5 of him. Oh, you okay?
Yeah.
Not very big.
Yes, she's just a very short-legged, compact little dog.
Mm-hmm.
So we began to wonder about she acted fine,
Yeah,
but we began to wonder about the consumption of water because that's not normal.
it's abnormal.
So she whelped her puppies out and raised them and did great, but we had to keep a very large water dish in there for her and always make sure that it was filled up, that it wasn't run empty or anything. So after she weaned her puppies and got her dried up and back into normal shape, we made an appointment and took her in to have her kidneys checked. Well, they ran blood and she comes in and the vet came back in and said, I think we need to take an x-ray. She says on the blood work it's really not showing any kidney function.
Activity, no function.
So they took x-rays and they could hardly find the kidneys on an x-ray.
So instead of being like a bean, they were like a pea.
Mm-hmm. They were extremely tiny. So they took urine also, and she says, yeah, the urine's like water. There's no...
Essentially no kidney function.
Mm-hmm. But the strange thing was she didn't act like she had a problem at all.
Mm-hmm.
And this is a dog they have their first litter anywhere from... They're bred the first time anywhere from 1.5 years to 2 years old. So I think she was just over 2 years old and already in renal failure. And I asked the vet why
At this age,
why on earth would she be in renal failure? And she said she didn't know. She said she's seen more and more young dogs in renal failure, and it doesn't seem to be necessarily a hereditary thing. There's not necessarily a pattern to it. She's just seeing it a lot more.
And we're actually experiencing the same thing with horses. So if we get to the inside of this and figure this out, we will let you know.
Mm-hmm. So I still had the liver kidney product that you had sent me for smoking that I really didn't get a chance to use on him. And so we just decided that she was just going to live out her life at our house, no matter how long it was, no matter if it was a year or another 5 years. And I thought, well, I will just use that supplement that you sent for smoking on this little
Which we
girl.
call Protect, and it's for liver, kidney, gallbladder, and bladder specifically.
So we have a huge play yard that all the dogs go out in. But they're separated out into groups at night when they're all shut up. No dogs are left outside at night. So the group that she was with, I had to put 2 large water bowls
In their
in that section.
container, or in their pen, I mean.
Yep. And there would not be much water left by morning in the second dish.
Mm-hmm.
So I started her on your product, and I didn't pay attention to the time frame here. It's just one day I noticed that I was not happening to, like, when I would scrub out the water dishes and refill them,
Every
that
night.
second bowl was always full in the morning. I mean,
At this
now.
point. Mhm.
yeah, and
And how many
before,
dogs are in her pen with her?
8 to 10
Okay.
at any given time. Where before there was a quarter of the bowl left, probably. I mean, right down to where,
Pretty low.
yeah,
And the first one would be empty?
empty.
Empty.
Bone
Okay,
dry.
so over 1.5.
Mm-hmm. So I began to notice that bowl was hardly touched.
The
And
second
so,
one.
so I removed that bowl, and then the one bowl would be down to about a quarter of water left in it by morning when I would go let them all out. And now we're sitting, and this is wintertime, so she's haired out. And
Yeah.
it's 70 degrees in the building where the dogs are shut up, and half with 8
Which
to 10
would
dogs.
be more normal for what you would see with 8 to 10 dogs and not her.
Yeah, with the size of water dish and that amount of dogs, we like to have it to where when they're let out, there's still about half a bowl left in there,
Yeah.
so we know that
They had plenty.
yeah. So I do not know what has changed within her, but something absolutely has, because the consumption of water that she was
Drinking.
consuming has gone down over half.
So we're really
So-
excited because she has an appointment tomorrow to get her kidney levels in her bloodstream and stuff checked again. And so we will be updating this with that information. I'm really excited about it. But the consumption of water is one of the first indicators a kidney's in trouble, and the lower consumption is an indicator that they're healing, just like the horse that I healed. And I actually made him tea and poured tea into his water every day. He would come in from outside just to drink the tea. He liked it so much, and I think he knew it helped him. He had lower back pain, which is often indicated with kidney failure or kidney problems, is that they'll have pain just ahead of their hips in their loins. Snoring so loud. We apologize. Espo does snore a bit. Okay, so go ahead and continue.
Yeah, and the exciting part of the whole thing is she runs and plays and eats and is happy, and so it's not a concern that we are going downhill.
Yeah,
It's an exciting
evidence
evidence
that her body
we're
is
doing
winning.
better.
Mhm.
Yeah, so that has been really fun to witness. And
Yeah.
like I said, I don't know what the time frame was, but when I realized it, and then it dawned on me, the one that was
The second
consuming
bowl.
all the water, wasn't. It's super exciting.
Put her on a renal diet.
I did not.
Did not.
Even though it was recommended, I just,
Super
everything
nice.
in me told me not to. So I just left her eating the same thing all the other dogs were eating. And then when I got your daily doggy and I began to mix it into all the dog food, she got that too.
Yeah, which increased her nutritional value.
Yes, yes. By fall last year, which was just ahead of us talking, her hair had become very dry, very brittle, thinner. She looked like a little porcupine. Yeah. So, and I stripped all of her hair off.
And
for
one
the
of the
last-
things that we know with horses is if a horse becomes toxic in their body, their hair will actually stand up. So when she says it looks like a porcupine, the hair will actually stand up.
Yeah.
And that's a very strong indication that there's a poison in the body that the body is having a difficult time dealing with.
So, and I noticed that just ahead of getting your products and starting the dogs on it. And I thought, well, she just doesn't,
Look
you can
good.
see the decline
Yeah.
starting, and she was not as active. So, at some point after
Starting the nutrition.
Yes, I was seeing the difference with the other dogs, and I happened to open the cupboard, and it's like that product was like my eyes
Glaring.
were just drawn to it,
Yeah.
and I thought, I'll just put Abeeda on there and just try to support where she's at and see what happens. And so I started mixing it into just some regular canned dog food that we use for all the dogs. Not a renal food, just it's what we feed.
A wet food.
And-
You
yeah.
feed something, a supplement with that they don't want to eat.
And I started out with like a heaping eighth of a teaspoon once a day. And I do not know the time frame because I wasn't expecting anything. Just here, when was it that I mentioned to you that she looked different and I wanted to get her checked?
Maybe 2 weeks ago. I think it was about 2 weeks ago.
I was thinking
10
maybe
days, somewhere in that time.
maybe a month ago. I thought, wow, Abeeda just looks good. And she began to lose weight. She had her weight back on, and she began to lose weight when she was 6. So then she was starting to gain weight again. Yeah, and
recently.
Really, and her eyes were brighter. Her whole demeanor was livelier. And I thought, wow, that's interesting. But the really telltale sign was she's in a section with like 8 other dogs, and I have 2 large water bowls that hold a gallon each holds a gallon in that section with them, and with her in there, the consumption was 1 total bowl and at least 3/4 of the other bowl. Well, I began to see that the other bowl was already full when I'd come back out in the morning and let him back out, and so I ended up removing that other bowl, and I thought, well, that's weird.
Had you put the extra bowl in there for her?
Yes,
because of the water consumption.
Yep. So I removed that other bowl and just kept an eye on the 1 bowl, and it would be low, like a quarter of it left in there when I would come in and this is just overnight.
Yeah.
When I would come in and let him out in the morning. Then I began to see that it was at half. You know? I mean, they don't get up and drink a lot during the night. So
her water consumption had gone down considerably, drastically.
Yes. So
and the building is temperature controlled. It's the same temperature every night.
It's 70, 72 where we keep it.
So it wasn't an environment change that was causing the water consumption to change so dramatically.
Right. Well, we don't typically clip their hair down short during the wintertime.
She's in Iowa. It's cold here. And then they go outside to play with their jackets.
Right. On. We want them to be able to be comfortable when they go outside. You know, they have a doggy door. They can go in and out throughout the day, and then they're all shut in at night.
Yeah.
I began to notice that some of the knots in her hair, generally as the hair grows, the knots continue to knot out the skin. Yeah. Well, I began to notice that the knots were growing away from her skin. And I thought, well, that's odd. That's not something I see because I groom
all of them.
So I'm grooming dogs almost every day. And
they're Shih Tzus, they don't shed. So that entails clipping, of course, and shortening the hair on purpose.
So I don't clip them real short during the wintertime. So I picked her up and I lifted the mats up to look under it, and there was like shiny hair and richer hair underneath
coming up.
So I thought, okay, something has changed. Something has changed drastically
within her. Because the hair and the skin are the last things to get healthy. When a dog is in trouble, of course, whatever it is that's supporting their life, such as their kidneys, all the nutrition is going to be taken to that place to support life. And so the hair can get neglected. So if your dog's hair or skin is in trouble, it's showing you that something inside is actually going on. And so, and then the last indicator that health is happening is that the skin and hair begin to come back online and look alive again.
So we set her up to get her kidneys checked. And all I told them when I set up the appointment, because I didn't want to give any indication of
what we were seeing. We just wanted what their honest opinion was based on what they personally saw and the test results.
So Mom took her in yesterday, and they drew blood, and the vet came in, and she says her kidney function is normal.
Normal kidney function.
Normal. She says, let's pull some urine and check and see what that looks like. They pulled the urine, and it's normal urine.
And what is the approximate time span if you were just going to kick it down to how many months since you think it could have been that you started? the Protect product, and then she'd been a week or 2 weeks or however long on the daily doggy as well, from the beginning of that whole process.
Probably November,
and we're now into January, and so that was a couple months.
I think October is when we really talked, and you sent me the daily doggy and stuff for the other dogs, and so she was started on that as well. But I think it was probably November-ish after I really saw a difference with the other dogs that she was started on that Protect. So ultimately, it really wasn't that long.
Yeah,
Couple
6 to
months.
8 weeks.
Yeah. So Mom called me so the vet could kind of tell me what she found. And the vet says she's normal. I say, how could that be possible? And she says, I don't know. She says, but her kidney function is normal. I said, so could she have puppies again? And she says, I don't see why not.
Now, did they X-ray her again?
I don't know. I don't believe that they did, but we
don't need it. It doesn't matter if everything's normal.
Yeah. So she gets to resume her career, and then she will get to find a wonderful, loving pet home and retire there.
Yeah,
when she's done.
When she's done,
makes us so excited.
For her. So
and
she's
happy.
Yeah, so she'll get to be a mommy and have a wonderful life. And
yes.
But the best thing is that if the kidney function is normal and all signs point to that, and she's healthy, she's also not in pain.
Mm-hmm.
And nobody wants to watch their animal be in pain. And so that's Abeeda story. And Abeeda, you'll see here on the face of our product Protect for the liver and the kidneys. She says, I don't know about this whole camera thing.
So, and then Snuggles is my brother's dog. She went through her breeding career. At some point in her life, and I don't know exactly when this started, but it did start at some point in her breeding career because we stopped breeding her early.
And how old is she now? How old was she?
She's 7. She is.
And about how long since she's been bred then?
She stopped just ahead of turning 6.
Just ahead. So she's a little over 5. So she had a 2.5 to 3 year breeding career at that point.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So what instigated you stopping early?
She just stopped eating, like eating normally. She was just lean all the time, and then.
Which is going to deplete her. She's not eating enough to supply her body with.
And the last litter or 2 she had, there were puppies with closure problems, like the head didn't close.
Which could be a nutritional gap.
The umbilical didn't close, the palate didn't close, which she had healthy puppies prior to that.
Yeah.
So we stopped breeding her because we really felt, it was a cross that we didn't have trouble with,
In the past,
so we stopped breeding her because we really felt that it was a nutritional problem. Then we had everything tested on her that you could think of, and everything.
All the blood tests, all the.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But she was.
Everything came back within normal parameters.
Mm-hmm. And
but she was just not thriving.
Checked everything, but she just wouldn't eat. She would eat enough to exist. And then my brother and I began taking more and more dogs to town with us, and she was one of them that really got into going, and. So I would not clip her. I'd leave her hair longer or leave an outfit on her because I didn't want anybody to see how lean she was. And finally one day I decided, you know what? This is embarrassing and we can't figure out why. So I began to syringe feed her. Mm-hmm. And she has taught me so much on syringe feeding dogs. I just began at a very low rate, and over a course of months I would increase the amount little by little until she's up to 10 pounds and looks wonderful.
Yeah.
And she had energy.
Up to again a normal looking dog.
Yep. Mm-hmm. And she was happy and energetic. And I thought maybe if I taught her how to eat and got her into shape, maybe she would
continue to eat.
Did she? No.
And so how long a period of time approximately was when you started syringe feeding until she was happy and in weight and you thought maybe you could back off and she would eat?
It was a few months where I got her into shape and she was energetic and happy, and so I weighed her every day to know what her weight was always. So when I backed off of feeding her, I watched the weight
start to decline.
Right. gradually. And when I backed off feeding her, I decreased the dose or the feeding amount, and then I would go to every other day, so that maybe on the off day she would be hungry enough to eat. And she didn't drop fast, but she would slowly start to decline. So for a while, I just maintained feeding her every other day.
So you just kind of did the teeter-totter and then decided I'll just feed her.
So I have fed this dog for years, 4 or 5 years probably now.
Oh wow. So throughout her breeding period, you fed her.
Yes, the tail end of, well, after she had those litters with closure problems, we stopped breeding her. I got her back into really good weight, and Chris said, I'd really love to have a daughter from her, because none of her sisters have eating problems, and it doesn't seem to be we kind of think that it maybe was a psychological thing. Maybe something happened at some point that caused her to back off eating, but now I'm not so sure because, and I'll tell you why at the end of this little story. So we did breed her twice after that, and she had 2 puppies and then she had 1 puppy, but I fed her all the way through her pregnancy, all the way through nursing her puppies, but hardy, healthy, robust puppies. One of her sons went to a friend of ours and is a breeding male, producing beautiful puppies with no eating problems. But after I got your stuff and saw the difference in the first 3 dogs we started on it, I began to give it to everybody except her. And I had been syringe feeding her all this time, and then one day I thought, why am I not putting that stuff in her syringe? That is ridiculous.
So I started the syringe every day.
Yes. So I started putting the daily doggy in her syringe also, and you know that in the past couple weeks she has come to me every night, and when I do the herbs, I put it in a little wet food for a lot of the dogs. Yeah. They'll eat it up in a little wet food. And I open the hallway doors and let them in the hallway. They eat their food and I let them out. She stands at those doors. So I have put wet food in a dish and
put it on the floor.
She is eating it on her own.
On her own. Because she wants it.
So now I'm thinking that there was a lack of nutrition that was triggering.
So anorexia actually is a hormone imbalance. A lack of hormone drives anorexia, which also begins in the gut. So if she didn't have any nutrition to make the proper amount of hormones so that there was a balance within her body, that would have driven anorexia, which anorexia is the desire not to eat.
That's what
whether it's driven from not wanting to eat for a weight thing, but in a dog obviously that would not be the case. But there is actual hormone balancing that has to take place when anorexia is an issue.
Yeah, and she didn't grow up like that.
Yeah.
You know, we didn't have a problem in her younger years. There just came a point where
nutritionally she got out of balance and couldn't rectify internally the hormone imbalance that was internally happening, which would have supported an issue like anorexia, which is what she was experiencing.
I'm still maintaining very carefulness with her. I let her eat a pan of wet food, but I have my 1 syringe where we used to do 3 syringes. Now I'm down to 1 syringe with her herbs in it. So unless I can get her to eat the wet food with the herbs in it, she will continue to get that syringe. But I'm very happy that she has picked it up on her own, and it's just
and that is eager to eat.
Yes.
Stands at the doors and is ready to go and eat, which obviously indicates that the hormone balance has at least made her hungry.
Yes.
She has an awareness of being hungry.
And even if it gets to the point where all I have to do is just a squirt of herbs, and she eats the rest on her own, that would make me happy because that's far less time than multiple syringes, you know. Yeah. And she's happy. She's very happy. Oh, and for years her coat was very dry. Just very dry and coarse and always a little thin, so I always cut her like with a 5/8 blade so that there was.
So the hair was longer?
Yeah, and it would leave, because her hair lays very flat, so at least it would leave a layering on her skin and you couldn't see her pink. She's white, so you couldn't see her pink skin through her hair.
Bleached?
Yes.
Sunburnt,
and I think she was so depleted that she's been on the herbs for 2 months maybe now.
Okay.
And the last time I clipped her, I was in shock with the difference in her hair coat. It is thicker.
So she had new hair growth.
Yes, and it is glossy. I didn't have to clip her as short because she has like a real layering on her hair coat. And when I brushed her tail out, I was like, Snuggles, where's all this new growth coming in on your tail? It's thicker. I mean, it's very exciting. There's a big change outwardly. on her now.
Which everything starts inside out, and so the hair is the last thing to come online.
So that
reproduction.
Yeah, that was very exciting to see on her. So then seeing all the benefits on our male dogs of our breeding program, and then seeing the benefits on our pets, I did start all the breeding stock on your daily doggy along with the Miracle.
Which they had been on previously, but not the daily. Yeah.
Right. So I added that Miracle in with that from the time that they wean their puppies until they come in heat. But we're still seeing a problem from the time that we do have pretty good litter sizes overall, but we're having a problem with still mamas being unsettled and being careless and being agitated, not wanting
Anxiety
to just, yes,
driving anxieties.
Not wanting to just lay out and take care
And
of
enjoy
their
their
puppies,
puppies.
And milk production coming in on time. So, and we are faithful with the Oxymate, the prenatal, and then the Oxymama after they whelp, but we are still seeing a gap there. Because
we had the same gaps in with the horses, and so at some point, while I had been using Miracle for years, about 5 or 6 years ago, I developed one just for milking, and so we started in the last trimester of horses. We switched them over to what we call Milk Wagon. So did I sent you some of that, didn't I?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
So we're excited to the last couple of weeks, 2 to 3 weeks of their gestation while they're pregnant, to switch them over. Have you switched any over to that yet? That are milking yet?
Yes, but back up on that a
Okay.
little bit, because we have Willow and Ferret
Willow and Ferret, right?
that they were on the Oxymate while they were pregnant, and then over to the Oxymama when they had their puppies. Willow lost 2 litters in a row. Just strange. Don't even really know the first litter, what the issue. We did save 1 of the 3 puppies, but it lived in the incubator, had trouble breathing, like, I don't know, maybe not well-developed lungs, or maybe a heart that took more time to
close.
Because once the puppy was 6-7 weeks old, she was fine.
Yeah.
But it was the only one that we saved. And then the next litter, she only had 1, and the puppy died within the first week. And when we had the necropsy done, the heart had an issue and had enlarged. So we began to be concerned that it was a hereditary problem within her, even though her first 2 litters were fine, and then she lost her second 2 litters.
But she's pretty young yet.
She's very young. She had only had 4 litters. So we really considered not breeding her anymore, but I talked to you, and Chris really wanted
To breed
to
her again.
possibly figure this out and be able to allow her to at least have another litter where her puppies lived.
Yeah.
So
The success.
so we picked our genetically safest male
To cross on her.
to cross on her, that we rarely had any issues out of him, and a lot of the issues could be traced like from Snuggles, nutritional issue. So we chose Rory, and I talked to you, and we came up with the things that you thought
would support her best.
And
Which were
the daily doggy, and
Miracle up until the last few weeks before she has the whelps.
Yep. And then when she gets close, then over to
Switch
the
to Milking Mommy.
And so this is a dog that in between litters eats great, but once she's bred, she goes through this nauseated stage and she doesn't eat. So I started syringing her a good 6 weeks before being bred to
Make sure she was.
and I put those first herbs in it, the Daily Doggy and the Miracle, to try to get her body prepared for this and to get her prepared for being syringed so that I could gradually increase the amount when her body was calling for more food.
Nutrition.
So I syringed this dog 6 weeks ahead of her turning heat all the way until she had her puppy. She still only had one puppy, but I think because she was so nutritionally depleted before, she at least did have the one puppy, and he is 2 weeks old and hearty, healthy, robust little thing. And this little girl has taken on 3 orphan puppies.
So she's milking more than just him.
She is, and she's
And are they thriving?
Oh yes.
Oh, yes.
Thriving well, thriving better than they were where they were at. So that is a very positive thing because the mothers of those.
And now you said she had. Did she have? Was she one that you said
She-
had anxiety?
Not her.
In her. Okay.
The mothers that had the puppies that we gave to this dog were still on the Oxy Mate and then on to the Oxy Mama, and they were so over the top anxious and wouldn't settle and wouldn't lay down and take care of their puppies, and so we pulled the puppies from them and gave
Because
them
the
to this
puppies were suffering.
and unsafe
failing to thrive.
and we lost some of them. So
Yeah, they were failing to thrive with where they were.
and so we dried those ladies up and took them back out to the big pen. And usually when we dry up mamas, we start weaning puppies, and we take them out to the big pen during the day because we gradually separate them from their puppies. If they hear you go outside, they're at the gate jumping up and down and crying and going crazy, begging you to maybe take them back inside. These 2 girls,
They just didn't care.
no, there was no hormone of
Connection.
love for those puppies, and they'd had puppies before. So after just a couple litters, they had what produces those hormones had dropped so much.
Yeah, because the hormones of oxytocin is what connects a mother to the child, a mama to the puppy, and that is actually what makes them be careful, entices them to lay down and to cuddle and snuggle the puppy and make sure it gets fed enough. And
so then over to Ferret, which is Willow's mother. Ferret had 7 litters. In the beginning of her career, everything was good. A good mom. But I felt like she was out and about, because she lives in my room, so she has her puppies in my room, and she can come and go as she pleases. It kind of felt like she was out and about more than I would like to see, but her puppies were always fat and taken care of, so I let it go.
slightly more independent than you'd like.
Yeah. So, but in the last 2 litters, she has lost puppies. From the last puppy we took to the vet and had checked, and she said the heart didn't close, and this puppy's not going to thrive. So we had the puppy put to sleep, and it was only because I began tube feeding it because it couldn't nurse on its own anymore, and we weren't sure what the problem was. And so we had the puppy checked, and we had it put down because
it wasn't. Yeah.
Yeah.
It was just going to suffer.
So I was really considering not breeding her anymore because if she's gonna lose a puppy or 2 in each litter, it's hard on her because the puppy cries and then she whines because she's
It's hard on you because
it is.
the puppy dies.
Uh-huh.
And it's heartbreaking for you.
And it cries all night, and she's in my room, and so I hear this puppy crying all night, and I'm getting up constantly to see what I can do to help it, and I don't know what's wrong with it. So I was greatly considering not breeding her, but after talking to you with Willow, and Ferret eats. She's a good eater. I decided to syringe her the nutrition that Willow was getting. So they were going to be my 2 guinea pigs on your nutrition.
As
all the way
opposed to
through.
the nutrition they had been on.
And all the
Before.
other dogs
On all the other
were
dogs
still
were
on. So she got the Miracle and the Daily Doggy, And then she got the milk wagon added, which she does not need because she
really milks.
yes.
The milk wagon
But-
does support the milking process, but there are also herbs in it that support the tissues going back to normal, the hormones to return to normal, so that anxiety and depression that comes from postpartum, that a lot of female bodies have difficulty rebalancing, those are all accounted for. Also, the nutrients needed for the body to do the rebalancing is offered from the herbs that are in it.
So, and because you explained that, I did put her on the
Milk and
wagon.
mommies.
This was her 8th litter, and she had 3 puppies, 2 girls and a boy. And this is the best that dog has ever done, ever. The most dedicated to her puppies. She's always been a good mom and she keeps them clean, but like spotless clean this time. Never. I mean, I check little rears and keep the little rears shaved so that to help the mothers out, you know. And there's been times where there's been a little bit of yucky stuck to the hair, you know. No, not one time. I mean, these puppies were immaculate. And the interesting thing is, these were the quietest, laid back, easiest group of puppies out of the 4 last litters from the same sire she's ever had. Like, these puppies are balanced.
And so, are these the 2 first litters you've done the whole protocol in?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay.
And I
So
even
we'll be
had,
updating this going forward now that the rest of the herd is beginning on these products,
yes,
on everything.
And I even found myself going back and checking on her because she wasn't out and about like she normally had been with previous
Less
litters.
independent.
I would go look at her box and she just laid out. She'd lift her head a little bit, wag her tail, lay it back down. She was just content to
To
just
be there.
lay in the box with the puppies, dedicated to them, which I love to see. And it's so exciting to me because she's not at retirement age yet, but I was considering,
Retiring her.
and now I feel like I can breed her once or twice more,
Yeah.
and she'll make it to her
Yeah.
retiring age. And
So if you're a breeder who is experiencing some of the things that she's talking about, and these are things that with the horses, we had already been experiencing, and I had been looking for solutions. And really what I found was that if you could provide the body with the raw materials to create everything that within the body is needed to run all of the systems correctly, that optimal health can be not only achieved by the mother, but then the babies really thrived also. And so if some of the things that Jenny has experienced, you also have experienced with your dogs, then the nutritional gaps that we are experiencing and going forward, we are going to continue to try to improve, but it's a huge step in the right direction for the nutrition of your dog.
yeah,
They're not found in the kibble, they're not found in the dog foods, they're not even found in a lot of the plants on our planet,
or the supplements.
or the supplements.
I'm pretty excited because with this because our litters come in waves. Girls cycle in waves together.
Yeah.
In this last wave that we had, we specifically had probably 4 mothers that were extremely out of balance. And
Hormonally, or
yes,
nutritionally.
and lost puppies and
Okay.
agitated and didn't want to take care of them. And so the 4th one, I think we'll make it through. I think we're going to get her through this spell, and she'll probably be all right. But 3 of them we dried up and
Put their
back.
puppies back outside. Willow took a couple of those.
Yes,
mothers'
and another one of our females took some of the other puppies, but we don't ever want to see that.
Yeah,
And so the exciting part of seeing the difference between Willow and Ferret, even though they were excellent mothers anyway, they're extraordinary mothers now.
Mhm.
So I really feel like there's hope for these females because I think it's totally imbalance of hormones that
Mhm.
cause them to be reckless and not want to take care of their puppies and step on puppies or lay on puppies. So I don't feel like these dogs just need new homes. They
Or need to be pets. They need
Yeah.
to be cared for differently.
Yeah, they
Yeah.
need nutrition to be able to support their body so they can support their puppies.
And then the last thing that I think maybe we should touch on is the anxiety aspect. So for humans and for horses, I have a product that I call, in humans we call it Sleep Science, and in horses we call it Just Chill. And it works to support the PM cycles of the body, the natural wake-rest cycle, the rest aspect specifically in the PM for the Just Chill and Sleep Science. And it's the adrenals that wake you up and put you to bed. And if you don't have enough of the correct chemicals within your body, when it's time to go to a restful state, what that's going to look like is you're going to have anxiety, you're going to lay down and all exhausted, and then all of a sudden be wide awake, mind can't stop, you start having fear and anxiety for no reason, nothing's happening, you're laying in bed. And the same is for dogs, they're not different than us. And so if this is something you have experienced it, even at some points in your life, then you can understand how a dog who has anxiety would also feel. And to understand that when an animal, whether you or your dog, is out of balance within the hormones, if the correct nutrition is not there for the body to rebalance, it's unable to do it. So it's unable to stop the driving anxiety, because that's coming in response to too much cortisol in the system, a low production or no production at all of melatonin also. And so let's talk a little bit about your experience with the dogs with the Just Chill.
So you had sent me some Just Chill only on the little, you would send it to me with my tumbler, I think.
Yeah, I told Jenny that if she was going to try the dog products, that I was going to send her also the human equivalent of the product, so that as she could see the changes in the dogs and feel the changes in herself, she could begin to correlate what things affected what systems of the body and what was supporting, so that she then could also know what was needed to add possibly to this dog or that dog.
So baby has, at some point years ago, just started with anxiety. And at times it would get so bad that it didn't matter day or night. If there was a loud noise, it would trigger it, and she would shake and pant, and that's where her eye would get so much more pressure against it. And it was frustrating. I tried everything. I tried the adapto collars. I tried those little infusion things you plug in that puts out the pheromones. I tried the thunder shirts. I've tried all kinds of herbal supplements to help with anxiety and calm the body, and CBD oil, and you name it. I mean, and I even tried a prescription anxiety med on her.
Antidepressant anxiety type
can't
dog
remember
medicine.
what it was called offhand, but it made her so dopey acting. And she's always been one, you know, Shih Tzus are kind of known for snoring. You know, she's always been one who has snored, but she would sleep so sound she didn't make a peep. And I would wake up and put my hand on her and make sure that she was still breathing, because it knocked her out that hard. And then during the day, she just seemed sluggish and doped. I'm like, no, we are not doing this. And actually, after she had been on that for about 4 days straight, then one evening I gave it to her, and she even began to kind of stagger one way and stagger the other day. And I called the clinic, and it was the emergency vet that was on call. He's like, yeah, I think it's that med. He says, get her some food, help her system to, you know, absorb it. He says, it's already in her system. And he says, I don't foresee her having.
So it's almost a drunk response.
Yeah, yeah. He says, I don't foresee anything getting worse, but get some food on her tummy. And he said, I probably wouldn't use it again. And I was like, yeah, you think? I said, because now I feel like I need to take it. You know, now I've got anxiety. Yeah. So I was like, no, we'll deal with it. We're not going to go that route again. So the interesting thing is, after she was on the daily doggy, she was so happy during the day that the anxiety that would spike sometimes during the day never spiked during the day. No, she was so happy, but she would have some anxiety come nighttime. She gets very anxious. She wants out of my room. And it's stressful for me because I don't want her wandering around the
The
house
house.
at night by herself, you know. So,
In the dark.
so when you sent me my Tumblr and you sent a little baggie of the stuff that you said, anxiety for baby, 4th a teaspoon PM. So
And that
I
was
never,
just chill, which is the same as the sleep science.
and I never put 2 and 2 together that you sent for her was the same stuff that you sent for me as the sleep science in the capsules. So I sure was getting good sleep, you know, once I started those. And so I started her on those, and I think it took 3 days before, like, when I would get ready to go to my room, I'd have to go get her and carry her
Because she
back.
didn't want to go to your room.
Carry her
Because
back
she
to my
knew if she
room.
laid down, the anxiety was going to start. Mhm.
And I would lay her beside me, and I would just,
Tried to keep her calm.
yeah, I would just pet her, you know, and she would shake until she fell asleep. But at least I was able, once she was on the doggy daily, to do that, to where I could just pet her until she fell asleep.
Because she would shake and pant so hard it would move the entire bed.
Yeah, and it's, nobody wants to see their
No.
beloveds go through
Suffer
that.
like
yeah.
that.
So by the 3rd night that she was on the Just Chill, I couldn't find him. I'm like, where the
When
heck
you were
did-
getting ready to go to bed, you couldn't
I'm
find her.
like, where the heck did baby go? And I went and looked on the shelf that they get up on.
Yeah.
And I went and looked in the clipper room. There's beds throughout the clipper room. They like to go in there and sleep while I'm clipping and grooming. And there's a bed in the bathroom. She's not in there. There's a bed in the laundry room. She's not in there. I'm like, where the heck did... So I finally go down to my room, and she is sawing logs on my bed.
She made
Sawing
herself in bed.
logs. And I'm like,
The place she associated with anxiety attacks.
Uh-huh.
She went by herself to.
and I just stood there and watched her, and I started to go out of the room, and then I'm like, I went over there and shook her and woke her up. She just looked at me, yawned, and kind of moved around and went back to sleep. I'm like, okay, I guess you're okay then, because I started to wonder if maybe she wasn't feeling good, you know?
Yeah.
And yeah, she's been
And
good
from
ever
that
since.
night on,
Mhm.
she's been okay. And then explain your experience with the sleep science, like when you had run out and then realizing.
Yeah, I'm sleeping so good. Like when I fell asleep, I stayed asleep until my alarm would go off in the morning, you know, and sleeping really good. And then I didn't think much of it. I ran in and out of the sleep science and the Tumblr, and didn't really associate running out of it with the fact that for 3 nights I can't sleep. I can't fall asleep. When I do fall asleep, I wake up constantly. And one day I was taking like the PM joint, and I spun it around, and I looked at the sleep science empty, and I'm like, oh, that's why. So I text you right there that I need more sleep science because my dog is sleeping, but now I'm not. But I didn't have a whole lot left for her, so I was not going to take hers, and you know, so I think
Nobody sleeps.
Right, I think I had to. You send me
Right
some
away.
more for her and me. But the interesting thing is, little Snuggles that I had fed for syringe fed forever. She began to have anxiety if it stormed.
Okay.
But when it would trigger, she would go on for days.
Yeah, it wasn't just that during the storm it would
Uh-huh.
continue.
So
she was having trouble recovering
yes
when she was out of balance.
So she's my brother's dog, and she sleeps with him, and she would scratch on his door until
Wake
he'd
you up.
get up. Well, he'd get up and let her out. So, and he mentioned that, man, ever since that last storm, Snuggles she just wigs out.
Doesn't sleep.
As soon as I shut my light off to go to sleep, well, she's up and scratching on the door. And so I began in her syringe to add the sleep science to hers. And by the 3rd day, a lot of times my bedroom is at the far back of the house, and my brother's bedroom is at the front of the house by the bathroom. And so Snuggles and one of his other dogs always come with me because he works out way late, until he comes in, and he'll generally come down and get them and
Go to bed.
so by the 3rd night that she was on that, he'd come down to my room to get them, and he says, it's been really weird. Like, Snuggles was just totally wigging out. And he said, the past couple of nights, she just goes and lays down and goes to sleep. And I was like, that's weird. I wonder why. And then we're visiting about stuff, and it just dawned on me. I'm like, oh, I started her on that just chill that baby's on. And he goes, oh, I bet that's why. Like, she just
rebalanced.
Yep.
Yeah. Gave her what her body needed so that she could start producing melatonin naturally and could then relax and go to sleep.
So the last storm New Year's, they were the neighbors were lighting off.
Which is the same thing as a thunderstorm to a dog.
Oh, gosh, it sounded like grenades practically. It wasn't just fireworks, it was big booms.
They live in the country.
Yeah, so I have her and a couple other of my other ones that if it storms super loud and thunder is really loud or big booms like that, they will get rattled. So I've got these other dogs in my room rattled, and baby snored through the entire thing because I thought, well, here it is. This
will be the test.
Yeah, and I just kept watching her every time a boom would go off. And at one point, she kind of lifted her head and looked at me and rolled over a little bit, went back to sleep. I was like, oh my gosh, that was a close one. But it didn't. It never
didn't set her off.
Yeah. So that was pretty exciting. So there's several more that has now been started on the sleep science.
So the daily Doggy Complete has an AM and a PM, which will include all of the things that we've talked about. And just for a little more information, because it is important to understand the various things that happens within the body. Can you tell us a little bit of your experience when you first started on the superfood? Because the tumblers come with everything. They come with all the stuff that's in the doggy stuff.
Yeah, you had told me that the best way to understand what is going on with the dog is to experience it
for yourself.
For myself. So you sent me the tumbler, and I think by the third day, after taking everything, and taking
system.
it in order, like you say, the AM and then the PM, we have long days, 12, 14-hour days. I mean,
every day.
You're never done. And, no matter how long you're up in a day, you're never done. I was starting to notice that I would wake up feeling happy. And you're so exhausted, you go to bed exhausted.
After how long?
About 3 days. After 12, 14-hour days that you fall into your bed, you wake up exhausted too. And it just becomes life. That's just how it is, and you accept it as being how it is. And I noticed that I kind of giggle like, this is weird. Why
I'm happy.
Why am I happy right off the bat in the morning? I'm doing the same thing today as I did yesterday.
Jenny never really appreciated mornings.
No, I'm not a morning person. Not at all. But I would wake up and just kind of feel, I feel pretty good today. Kind of happy to get the day started. It's super strange. So by the third day, we had dog food delivered, 30-pound bags. There was probably 15 bags, I think, and they're all in boxes. Each individual bag is in boxes. And it would take me a week because they're stacked under our deck when they're delivered, and then I have to open every box and take them down the hallway and put them on the shelf. Usually takes me days because I'll do a couple at a time. It's 10:30 at night, and I'm still up and doing and feeling pretty good, and I'm like, oh, I should go get those boxes. Never even thought about the fact that there's like 15 of them.
And it's 10:30 at night.
Yeah, so I go out there and I'm tearing these boxes open. I've got a box knife cutting them open and pulling these bags out, and I left the hallway door open, and I was pitching these 30-pound bags down the hallway. So I get them all done. I've got all the boxes flattened and stacked up, and I go inside, shut the door, crawl over all these bags of dog food, and prop the hallway doors open, and I'm picking them up and I'm shoving them on the shelf, and my brother walks in, he goes, what's going on in here? And I said, well, I just decided I was going to put this dog food away. He goes,
at 11 o'clock?
Yeah, and he says, you could have asked for help maybe earlier. I said, I got this. And he goes, you're right, you do. And he just turned around and went back to bed, or back to his room, and I unloaded all of them. And when I was done, I was like, well, I wonder what else else I can do. And then I'm like, it's 11 o'clock, go to bed. So I went and took my sleep science and went to bed, but I just felt so good. I still had energy, you know, and I don't throw bags of dog food. I stack them on a cart and I wheel them down the hallway. Like I just had all this, you know,
expendable energy.
It was really exciting. And you know, right now is our big wave of puppies, so it is an easy 14-hour day. And so I do use more superfood.
Yeah.
Take more superfood.
More nutrition.
Yes, during that time. And when things are nice and easy and we have more normal hours, then I'll back off to like the normal dose. But it does help. It makes a difference.
It does.
It does. It supports your
You can't
body.
feel good if your body can't perform all of its functions, and it requires nutrition to do that.
It does.
So.
No, I ain't gonna lie. When I sit down, I could drift off, but when I'm up and going, it keeps me up and going, which is nice. So very helpful.
Is there anything else that you can think of through your experience?
We'll
be updating you as the next whole herd goes through. We'll be updating the new things that are being found with the products, and with some of the girls going forward, again, like Willow and
little Abeeda
with the kidneys. And anything else?
I just want to say that if you're a breeder and you have a male that's lagging, especially one that you don't feel like should taper off, because I've had a couple breeders tell me that, you know, like 7.
That's it.
Yeah.
We're gonna change that.
I'm looking to retire and get new stock. I can't accept that, especially when you can't top Mojo. You know, I mean, he's got to. He's got to keep going. So, if you have a male that is tapering off like that, try this. I mean, it has worked on 2 males, and I have one that just turned 8, Rory, and he has been started on this stuff now because I can't afford for him to taper off. So I want to support it before it begins to dip, because I believe in it, and I believe that it will keep him going. And then if you have older dogs that are just
a little bit painful, a little bit sad,
or just seem to be
depressed,
existing, I fully recommend trying the daily doggy and or the painless and or the tum tum, you know, whatever you need to add to that to support those specific issues that your dog might be dealing with. It's worth a try. I mean, I swear by it, and now all of our dogs are on the stuff, every one of them. So
so we're really excited to be launching our dog products. We hope to do that the first part of February. So if you're seeing this, then our products are available, and in the description box will be the links that you can go to the website and browse through the products. And of course, if you have any questions at all, both my number and Jenny's, if you have a lot of breeding questions and stuff, Jenny would be probably the one that you would want to talk to primarily. But we are both available at any time. It may be easiest to get us through text. I personally do most of my callbacks between 2 and 4, so if you'll text me, we can set up a time, and then also text Jenny. And if you prefer email, you're welcome to send us an email. Anything else?
I do have to say, I have a 17-year-old horse that now acts like a 2-year-old again, so if you have a horse, check out the horse products for sure.
They'll be on the same site that the dog products are offered through as well. So, all right. Well, we hope you've enjoyed this video, and we're very excited to be offering these products to you, and we look forward to hearing your successes and your feedback regarding them.
Yes.
Be blessed. Have a great day.
Bye.
Bye.